At 3 o'clock in the morning, the silence of the Berkshire countryside is often broken by the shifting of guards and the hum of security systems protecting the oldest and largest occupied castle in the world. Windsor Castle is not merely a residence for the British monarch, it is a fortress of memory, a sprawling stone vault that has absorbed the secrets of 40 sovereigns over nearly 1,000 years. While tourists marvel at the state apartments and the perfectly manicured grounds, the true history of this place is hidden in the shadows, locked away in archives, private corridors, and the royal collection's most secure storage rooms. Deep within these walls lie objects that defy simple explanation, artifacts that are too macabre, too personal, or too politically charged to be placed in a glass case for the casual observer. These are not the crown jewels, polished and paraded for the cameras. These are the silent witnesses to the darkest moments of the monarchy, the physical remnants of assassinations, the spoils of bloody colonial conquests, and the intimate tokens of royal madness and grief. From a lead ball that changed the course of naval history to the blood-stained garments of a beheaded king, Windsor guards a hoard of relics that whisper the uncomfortable truths of the past. Why does the royal family keep a bullet that killed a national hero? What is the story behind the golden tiger head that once adorned the throne of a sworn enemy? And what secrets were methodically cut out of a queen's diary by her own daughter? To understand the British monarchy is to understand what they choose to keep hidden. Today we are opening the heavy oak doors of the royal vaults to examine the strange, cursed, and fascinating objects that have found their final resting place in the Queen's house. Number 10. The bullet that killed Lord Nelson. In the grand vestibule of Windsor Castle, amidst a display of arms and armour that celebrates centuries of military prowess, sits a small, unassuming object that carries the weight of an empire. It is a single lead musket ball mounted in a locket, heavily oxidized by time and history. This is not just any piece of ammunition. It is the very bullet that struck Vice Admiral Horatio Nelson at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. The story of its journey to Windsor is as dramatic as the battle itself. Fired by a French sharpshooter from the rigging of the ship Redoutable, the ball tore through Nelson's shoulder, smashed 2 ribs, and lodged in his spine, effectively ending the life of Britain's greatest naval commander at his moment of supreme victory. For years, this grim relic was not treated as a museum piece, but as a holy relic of the state. After the battle, the ship's surgeon, William Beatty, extracted the ball during the autopsy. In a move that seems deeply strange to modern sensibilities, Beatty kept the bullet, wearing it in a crystal case around his neck for the rest of his life, a macabre jewellery piece that he would show to dinner guests. It was only after his death that the object was presented to Queen Victoria, who recognised its potent symbolism. She ordered it to be kept at Windsor, ensuring that the physical agent of Nelson's death would forever remain with the crown he served. Seeing it today, one is struck by how small the object is, a tiny sphere of lead that reshaped the map of Europe. It sits quietly in the castle, a reminder of the fragility of even the most legendary figures. It is a testament to the Victorian obsession with death and memory, transforming a piece of shrapnel into a sacred object of national identity. The bullet remains one of the most poignant items in the royal collection, a lethal piece of history that bridged the gap between a surgeon's morbid curiosity and a queen's reverence for her defenders. Number 9. The golden tiger head of Tipu Sultan. Deep in the royal storerooms, and occasionally brought out for exhibitions, is a heavy, life-sized head of a tiger, fashioned from thick gold and rock crystal. Its eyes stare blankly, and its teeth are bared in a perpetual snarl. This is not a mere decoration. It is a war trophy ripped from the throne of Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore, who was one of the most formidable enemies the British Empire ever faced in India. Tipu Sultan was obsessed with tigers, using them as his personal emblem and even keeping live ones in his palace to devour his enemies. His throne was an octagon of gold, supported by 8 of these magnificent tiger heads, a symbol of his ferocity and independence. When British forces finally breached the walls of Seringapatam in 1799, Tipu fell in the fighting. What followed was a frenzy of looting that stripped the palace bare. The magnificent throne was broken up on the spot by soldiers and officials eager to share the spoils. The gold was melted down or divided, but this specific head was salvaged and shipped back to England as a prize for the royal family. It arrived at Windsor as a symbol of total domination, the literal head of the enemy king's power, severed and displayed in the home of his conqueror. Today, the object feels heavy with the dark history of colonialism. It is a masterpiece of Indian craftsmanship, yet it sits in Windsor as a prisoner of war. The rock crystal eyes that once looked out over the court of Mysore now reflect the interiors of a British castle. It serves as a complex artifact, representing both the artistic brilliance of the Mysore court and the violent, acquisitive nature of the empire that dismantled it. It is a strange, glittering reminder that many of the treasures in Windsor were paid for in blood and fire. Number 8. Queen Victoria's human teeth jewellery. Queen Victoria is famous for her prolonged mourning of Prince Albert, plunging the entire court into black for decades. But her sentimentality extended far beyond standard grief, manifesting in objects that modern observers might find deeply unsettling. Among the personal items kept in the royal collection are pieces of jewellery commissioned by the Queen that incorporate human parts, specifically the milk teeth of her children. In the 19th century, the preservation of hair and teeth was a common way to maintain a physical connection to loved ones, but the royal collection takes this to an elaborate extreme. One specific brooch features the first milk tooth lost by her eldest daughter, Princess Vicky. The tooth is set in gold and enamel, designed to look like the blossom of a thistle. It is an exquisite piece of craftsmanship, yet the centerpiece is a piece of human bone. Victoria commissioned similar items for all her children, wearing them or keeping them in private boxes as tangible proof of their infancy. To the Queen, these were precious mementos of the time before her children grew up, married, and left her. To us, they border on the macabre. These objects reveal the intense, almost suffocating nature of Victoria's maternal love. They were kept in her private rooms at Windsor, away from the public eye, serving as a private shrine to her family's biology. While we might recoil at the idea of wearing a necklace made of teeth today, for Victoria, it was a way to freeze time. These strange jewels remain in the collection, a testament to a queen who could not bear to let anything, even the discarded teeth of her children, slip away into the past. Number 7. The execution shirt of King Charles I. Perhaps the most chilling textile in the entire royal collection is a sky blue knitted silk vest, or waistcoat, worn by King Charles I on the day of his beheading. On January 30th, 1649, the king woke to a freezing London morning. Knowing he was about to face the executioner's axe outside the banqueting house, he famously asked for an extra shirt, saying, "The season is so sharp as probably may make me shake, which some observers may imagine proceeds from fear. I would have no such imputation." He wanted to die with dignity, not shivering from the cold. This vest, which he wore to keep warm during his final moments, was preserved by those loyal to him and eventually found its way back to the royal family. It is stained, visibly aged, and carries the invisible weight of the monarchy's greatest crisis. For centuries, it was treated as the relic of a martyr. People would touch it, hoping to cure diseases, believing the king's blood held divine power. It is an object of profound tragedy, the final layer of protection for a man who believed he was appointed by God, stripped away before the stroke of an axe. The vest is rarely displayed due to its fragility, kept in the controlled environments of the royal archives or museums. When it is seen, the stains are still visible, dark, rusty patches that mark the violent end of the divine right of kings. It is a ghost in the fabric, a tangible link to the moment the English monarchy was severed from its head. In the quiet of Windsor, where Charles is buried in the Henry VIII vault, this shirt serves as a silent echo of the violence that once engulfed the crown. Number 6. The hidden Leonardo da Vinci anatomical manuscripts. Windsor Castle houses the Royal Library, a treasure trove of documents, but for centuries it unknowingly hid one of the greatest scientific achievements of the Renaissance. In a simple leather binding, sitting on a shelf and largely ignored, were hundreds of anatomical drawings by Leonardo da Vinci. These were not just sketches, they were detailed, revolutionary dissections of the human body that were centuries ahead of their time. Leonardo had intended to publish them, but upon his death, they were lost to the chaos of history, eventually acquired by the merry monarch Charles II, and then forgotten. For nearly 200 years, these drawings sat in the royal collection, their significance completely unappreciated. It wasn't until the late 18th and 19th centuries that they were rediscovered and examined by medical experts who were astounded. Leonardo had correctly identified the function of heart valves, the flow of blood, and the structure of muscles in ways that medical science was only just beginning to understand. Had they been published in the 1500s, they would have advanced medicine by centuries. Instead, they gathered dust in a castle. The mystery here is one of omission. How could such genius be possessed by the crown yet remain invisible? Today they are among the most precious items at Windsor, kept in climate-controlled vaults. They represent the intellectual curiosity of the monarchy's collection, but also the strange serendipity of survival. These fragile papers survived wars, revolutions, and neglect to emerge as the crown jewels of the library, proving that sometimes the most valuable things in a castle are not made of gold, but of ink and paper. Number 5. The giant armour of Henry VIII. In the guard chambers and armouries of Windsor, there stands a suit of armour that stops visitors in their tracks, not because of its beauty, but because of its sheer, terrifying size. This is the field armour of Henry VIII, dating from his later years. Unlike the athletic, tapered armour of his youth, this steel shell was built for a man of immense bulk and failing health. It is a metal testament to the physical decline of the most infamous Tudor king. The waist measurement is enormous, the chest barrel-like, designed to protect a monarch who could no longer mount a horse without assistance. But the strange history of this object lies in the legends that grew around it. For generations, castle staff and visitors did not believe it belonged to Henry. The proportions were so grotesque that stories circulated that the armour belonged to a giant, perhaps a mythical figure or a freak of nature kept at court. It was only through historical records and the king's well-documented medical history that the armour was definitively identified as his. It is a stark physical graph of his gluttony and illness. Standing before it, one feels the imposing, dangerous presence of the king. It is an object that captures the tragedy of his reign, the transformation from a golden prince to a tyrannical, rotting giant. The armour is fully functional, an engineering marvel designed to keep a dying man in the saddle so he could still project power. It remains in Windsor as a hollow metal shell of the man who built much of the castle's identity, a silent, imposing monster of steel that watches over the corridors. Number 4. The Death Mask of Charles XII. Tucked away in the collection is a plaster cast that looks like a sleeping face, pale and serene, until you notice the horrific wound. This is the death mask of King Charles XII of Sweden, a brilliant military commander who died in 1718 during the siege of Fredrikstad. The mask is not just a memorial, it is a piece of forensic evidence in a 300-year-old murder mystery. Charles was killed by a projectile that struck his temple, but for centuries, historians debated whether it was an enemy bullet or an assassination by one of his own tired soldiers. The mask at Windsor is incredibly detailed, showing the exact entry point of the lethal object. It was brought to England and entered the royal collection, where it became a subject of intense study. The distortion of the face and the size of the hole have been analysed by ballistics experts and doctors for generations. The mask captures the king's face in the immediate moments after death, freezing the trauma in plaster. It is a haunting object, a literal snapshot of a violent end. Why is it in Windsor? The British royal family, through their extensive European connections, often became the custodians of such dynastic relics. It serves as a grim reminder of the hazards of kingship. While other monarchs have statues and portraits depicting them in glory, Charles XII is represented by the brutal reality of his death. The mask remains a strange forensic puzzle piece, a cold white face staring out from the darkness of the archives, inviting us to solve a crime that changed the balance of power in the north. Number 3. The Ring of the Earl of Essex. In the more intimate display cases of the castle, there lies a gold ring set with a sardonyx cameo of Queen Elizabeth I. This is not merely a piece of jewellery, it is the centre of a tragic romantic legend that has haunted the story of the Virgin Queen for centuries. The ring is said to be the Essex ring, given by Elizabeth to her favourite courtier, Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex. The legend goes that she told him if he ever found himself in trouble with the crown, he should send the ring to her, and she would grant him clemency. When Essex was eventually condemned to death for treason in 1601, he desperately tried to send the ring to the Queen from the Tower of London. According to the story, the ring was intercepted by Lady Nottingham, the wife of his enemy, who kept it secret. Elizabeth, believing Essex was too proud to ask for mercy, allowed the execution to proceed. It was only on Lady Nottingham's deathbed that she confessed the truth to the Queen, who was reportedly devastated, crying out, "God may forgive you, but I never can." While historians debate the absolute factual accuracy of the tale, the ring itself is real and resides in the royal collection. It is a physical symbol of the treacherous, heartbreaking nature of the Tudor court. Whether the story is folklore or fact, the ring has been treated as a cursed object of missed connection and regret. It sits in Windsor as a tiny golden monument to the idea that even absolute monarchs are powerless against the machinations of their own courtiers and the cruelty of timing. Number 2. The Shot-Through Prayer Book. Religion and violence have often intersected in the history of the British Isles, and nowhere is this more visible than in a damaged Book of Common Prayer kept within the castle's collection. This book belonged to a royalist soldier during the English Civil War. It is not remarkable for its printing or its binding, but for the hole that goes straight through it. The book was carried in the breast pocket of a soldier, and during a skirmish, a musket ball struck him directly in the chest. The ball, however, did not kill him. It lodged in the thick pages of the prayer book, stopping just inches from his heart. The book was preserved not just as a lucky charm, but as a sign of divine intervention, proof that God was on the side of the king's men. It eventually found its way into the royal collection as a curiosity of the war, a tangible mix of faith and ballistics. It is a strange, humble object compared to the gold and diamonds that surround it. Yet it tells a more immediate story of survival. You can still see the path of the bullet, the torn paper, and the violent impact that was absorbed by the liturgy. It rests in Windsor as a reminder of the thousands of men who fought and died for the monarchy, their lives often hanging by the thread of chance, or as they believed, the thickness of a prayer book. Number 1. The Censored Diaries of Queen Victoria. The most mysterious object in Windsor Castle is not a single item, but a collection of books that are defined by what is missing. These are the personal journals of Queen Victoria. The Queen was a prolific writer, documenting every day of her adult life in excruciating detail, her thoughts on politics, her intense passion for Prince Albert, and her unfiltered opinions on the people around her. When she died, she left behind 122 volumes of these diaries. But what sits in the royal archives today is not what she wrote. Upon her death, her youngest daughter, Princess Beatrice, appointed herself the literary executor. Driven by a desire to sanitize her mother's image and protect the dignity of the crown, Beatrice spent 30 years transcribing the diaries and then burning the originals. She systematically removed anything she deemed too personal, too scandalous, or too emotionally raw. The result is that the official diaries are a heavily edited, watered-down version of the Queen's true life. The mystery lies in what was destroyed. What secrets about the royal household, what outbursts of rage, or what intimate details of her marriage went up in smoke in the fireplaces of Windsor. The surviving volumes are strange artifacts of censorship, handwritten in Beatrice's hand, pretending to be Victoria's voice. They are a monument to the royal obsession with controlling the narrative. The real Queen Victoria is lost forever, burned by her own daughter to preserve the mystique of the monarchy. These books are the ultimate royal object, a polished, acceptable surface that hides a history we are forbidden to know. They remind us that the greatest secret kept in Windsor Castle is the true, unvarnished humanity of the people who lived there. When we look at these objects, the bullet, the tooth, the bloodied vest, and the censored books, we are forced to confront a reality that the pageantry of the monarchy often obscures. Windsor Castle is not just a stage for weddings and jubilees, it is a repository for the trauma, the violence, and the deep eccentricities of a family that has lived in the public eye for a millennium. These artifacts are the debris of empire and the scars of personal loss. They prove that behind the gold braid and the stone walls, there are human stories that are messy, painful, and often incredibly strange. They remind us that history is not just a list of dates, but a collection of physical things that survive long after the people who held them have turned to dust. The question remains, how many more objects are hidden in those vaults, waiting for the light of day? Do you think the royal family is right to keep these darker relics hidden, or do they belong to the public history of the nation? I'd love to hear your perspective in the comments below, especially regarding the censored diaries. What do you think was so scandalous that it had to be burned? If you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden vaults of Windsor, hitting the like button helps us uncover more stories like this. And for more investigations into the secret history of the British monarchy, make sure you're subscribed. We have a video coming up on the lost jewels of the Romanovs that you won't want to miss. I'll see you in the next one.